All right, so today we have Matt Weimer of Hummer Turf Grass Systems and Sporting Valley Turf Farms. Did I get all that correct?
You got it.
So I am repping your hat as well today. So if you are watching on the video, I got this. You won a quick way to my heart. It's through it's through the hat. You brought these to our Vistage meeting. So we're both in the same Vistage group. So it's been great getting to know you quite deeper. Then we'll get into some of the things today. But the opening sentence, well, one, thank you for coming on because I know
Yeah.
you really don't like doing this kind of stuff totally. So
Thanks for having me.
a little out of your comfort zone. So your team, the what I put here is the team, you are the team behind many of the fields that are televised most weekends and support multi-million dollar players.
Yeah, I think that's fair. We get involved in we're very fortunate. This is a 55-year-old business, and over those 55 years, we've made a lot of connections, gained a lot of customers that are at the highest level of sport, right? And even now, you can say there's millions of dollars on any college football field. So that's been an interesting change.
Yeah, so we'll get into some of that, but I mean, we're talking Steelers Stadium, we're talking Eagles Stadium, we're talking Nittany Lions Stadium. So your work gets televised a lot.
Yeah, and it can go really well or it can go really bad.
Yeah, because I'm sure, deadlines are real in your world, and I want to get into some of that a little bit later. So a lot of projects are projects, but your deadlines, they're not moving a season because the grass is screwed up.
No, they're not moving a game. There's a lot of money on the line. The players, the concession, the gate. So yeah, the pressure's on.
Yeah. So before we get into any of that, can you give me your 1 minute, 2 minute elevator career pitch? Like walk me through. I know you graduated from University of Delaware, and then for what? What did you get? What did you get into there?
Yeah, my high school ag teacher. He was actually a assistant professor, part time professor, at University of Delaware. I grew up Southern Lancaster County, so it was about an hour
Mm.
down to campus in Delaware, Newark, Delaware, and he got me in there to the ag school. So I went to a school for plant science. I had a double major, plant science and landscape horticulture. I was fortunate while I was there. I walked on the baseball team. Played
Mm.
4 years Division One baseball. That was a good experience for me and it taught me a lot. I probably shouldn't have been there. Shouldn't have been playing.
Why?
I didn't know it at the time because I wasn't smart enough. I was naive. But I walked on that fall, and I think there was like 4 or 5 catchers, and I was number 5. And just series of events. Guys got hurt, guys quit, whatever. By the end of the fall, it was down to 2 of us.
Get
And
out.
yeah, after that, they couldn't get rid of me, so I stuck around for a while.
Well, you must have been able to hold your own if you played all 4 years.
Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. I got to see a lot of places, got to do a lot of things, made a lot of friends, lifelong friends. So that was a fun part of that. I mowed lawns my whole life. That was my thing in high school, mowed lawns. Kind of, I guess, a low hanging fruit of our industry. Not low, that's the wrong word. What a lot of people did, the career track was to get into golf and be a golf course superintendent. That was what I wanted to do. Got a couple jobs out of college. I worked at some really nice courses. Worked at Wilmington Country Club, John Urbanski, good friend, good mentor of mine. It's been cool. He's back there. He was the South Course superintendent when I was doing an internship. Now he's back as a head superintendent, and it's actually we've been down there to do some work for
Nice.
him over the years. So that's cool to kind of see some of that go full circle and build those relationships early on. And got out of golf, and this is 17 years that I've been here. I answered a newspaper ad, and showed up
Uh,
showed up on the out front and handed my resume over. And Bob Hummer, the founder of the company, he was there, and he said, "So what do you want to make?" And that was like question 2. We didn't sit down. We there's nothing. Just what do you want to make? I said, I don't know, $40,000. Okay, and I was like, oh, I should have asked for something more than that.
didn't even blink.
Yeah, mistake number 1. Yeah, and 17 years later, I'm still here.
So what did you come in doing? Were you just working the field, working the projects?
I was actually hired as the farm spray guy. So I was doing all the applications on the sod farm.
Get out. So in high school, you were cutting lawns, so you've been into lawn care for a long time.
It was the only work I ever known is grass.
Yeah. I love, as you know, I love mowing myself as well, which many people find super weird. But like, I can't do all the application stuff. I'm not
Yeah.
into all the chemicals and everything,
Yeah.
and I just don't want to figure it out. But like the mowing portion for me, I did that in college. The more of like, I was on the landscaping crew, not so much the mowing crew, because the mowing crew was the easy work. I got all the mulching and the shit work,
Yeah.
and which I didn't mind. But like, you've also loved it your entire life.
Yeah, it was better than getting like a real summer job in high school and college. Like that was my gig, and I made good money. It was cash.
Yep.
I tell the government that. I don't think they can get the taxes back on that at this point. But yeah, it was a great gig. I
Got
learned
to
a
be out in the
lot.
sun.
Yeah, out in the sun, you learned about looking back collections and things like that as
Yeah.
a young kid, and yeah, it morphed into this now. Uh, Came here to be this spray guy, and it was an interesting point in Bob Hummer's career. Like he was probably retirement age. A lot
Hmm.
of the guys that had been with him in key roles for a long time were retirement age and retiring, and that was right before 2008, 2009, a recession. So I really got thrown right into it, and I don't know, Bob and I got along, and he saw something in me, fortunately, and I stuck it out through those times and learned a lot from him, learned a lot from some of those old timers. They meant a lot to me, came back and helped and taught me a lot about what we do.
So I'm constantly hearing nowadays the huge caveat between older employees and younger employees and how you communicate with each other, how you get along. So how did you bridge that gap very quickly to obviously be seen as someone that brought real value to the company? Because you just came in as a sprayer, but you said you learned a lot from the people around you. Looking back now, what do you think you did really well?
Well, I think I could see the opportunity.
Mm,
I could look around and see that there was no one else that was
big
willing
gap.
to step up, right? And
Yeah.
Ed Kellenberger, they've been with Bob for, I think he was like employee number one, number two. We've been with him for 40 years. He kind of took me under his wing. And I guess to answer your question, I think I had a willingness to learn and I had a desire to do the work. I wasn't afraid to try it. I mean, I really messed some stuff up over the
Same.
yeah. I have killed a lot of grass. I have done a lot of things wrong, but they were willing to work with me because I think they could see that I was willing to try.
Sure.
I don't know. Hopefully, they saw some potential, and you know, I, I think a willingness to learn that was a big thing.
So you never really said no. You would try anything.
No, I couldn't have. I was a single guy. I mean, I would go on the road. We'd do out of town work. That was back in the day. Bob made us stay Friday night to work Saturday. We had to work Saturday if we were out of town. Nothing that we would do anymore. I wouldn't do that to my guys.
Yeah.
But this was what I had. This is what I did. I poured a lot into it. And I'm still pouring a lot into it. But back then, it was just a different grind, right?
Yeah.
We were digging out of some heavy stuff with a recession. We were trying to turn quality around and really worked hard to build a team up around Bob and I and some of those guys still with us today.
How quick was your trajectory during that time period? Like you came in as a sprayer, how quickly did those steps
I
come
was
along?
probably running work by maybe the end of that year, the end of my first year.
Shit. Nice.
Yeah, it was quick. I guess
Like
I didn't see it at that time, right? I didn't know it. It just kind of happened. And there was no like formal sit down, like, okay, Matt, this is what we're going to do today. This is what we expect out of you. It was like, okay, well, you're going to go here today. Go figure it out.
Hmm.
And that's what we did. We went and figured it out. Sometimes we figured it wrong, but we figured something out.
Do you consider yourself like a MacGyver of project management? Like have you always been that way?
I think looking back, I guess I didn't realize it at the time, but I think as I've stepped away from running jobs day to day, I can see how the pieces go together. Something that's interesting, I think, when I look at our guys now that run the work, I think one, they're way better than I ever was. But it was really interesting. It's always interesting to see how they look at things a little differently, right? And that was a challenge for me. Like as I started to step away from every day in the field, they're like, okay, this is how we're going to do this, and okay, yeah, okay, you got it, all right, and then it works. But just everybody has a different look at tasks and process. But I think I was we drive a lot. Like we're working hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours a here. Once I tell our guys, if you don't have a plan when you get out of that truck, when your boots hit the dirt, you're done.
You had 3 hours to think about it.
Yeah, you had 3 hours to think about it. If you get out of the truck, the day's over. If you don't have a plan as soon as you get to that site.
Have you formalized that process now?
We're working through that. I think they've made the work more repeatable.
Nice.
Where I was always like one fire to the next, right? They've kind of taken it and they have more processes. It may not be processes we have written down, but they know. And now that like you go to certain stadiums, this is what we're going to do. This is the steps. This is where this goes. This is where that goes. This is what we're going to do first, second, third, and it's just. I think they're able to concentrate on it more than I could back then. Hopefully, I mean that's my goal for them, right? Is to take some of the noise out around them and allow them to focus on the work.
Mm. It's such an interesting career to me. And was your high school your high school focus, was that what really sparked you into thinking, hey, I'm okay, I see this ad in the newspaper, like I might as well stay in this groove because I like this stuff? Like what really did you see it back then turning into like being in this industry for a long time?
Oh no way.
Okay.
Yeah, I had actually I moved back to the area. Just I think I struggled to find my way after college. Like
Mm,
I got into golf and kind of bounced around. I worked for a friend of mine's landscape business. They have really high end landscape business in Baltimore County.
okay.
Still around today. Learned a lot from them. That's where I started to learn project management, running men, machines, logistics. Because that's the focus of what we do. It's the client, it's the people, and it's the logistics. And that was kind of my first step into this. And then when I moved back into Lancaster County, I got this job. And honestly, I thought I was going to quit after like 2 weeks. It's like this is crazy.
Because it was hard or just was a lot?
It was a lot. And I think at that point, like I said, Bob was in transition as far as management. And I mean, he was probably in his 60s at that point. So I can't imagine, what's going through his mind at that point. You lose a bunch of guys around that have been right by your side for 30, 40 years, and you're trying to recreate that's a challenge. So I think he was trying to find his way a little bit. And I don't know, maybe that's where we connected. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I mean, perfect timing, but at the same time, you could have just rolled in there, did the bare minimum, and you would have never been where you're at because, there's a lot of trust there, especially with someone who's getting closer to retirement.
Yeah. Yeah. And he had a lot on the line. And it was looking back, I wouldn't want to do that again to go through all those times. But I learned a lot. And I think those experiences, you can't, I don't know what word I'm looking for, but I just learned so much from all that, from grind. Dig.
Those hard times probably make you very unshakable now.
They do. I've had to shake some scar tissue, I think, from that, right?
Yeah, of course.
Where when you get into some successful times and you're like, okay, well, I don't know if we could do that. If I can hire that guy. And I think like that's some of the stuff that I think like the group and the Vistage group and coaching has really helped me with, is just to kind of shake some of that stuff and say, okay, well, that's not where we are. We're here today. We're doing well, and we need to build on that.
Yeah, and I was thinking more along the lines of because I know that the worst projects in my career have made me not scared of a lot of projects now because I've been through the war of terrible projects and
Yeah,
it scars you over so bad.
it does. I mean, you get the team president for a professional sports team on the phone calling you effing whatever. You learn something from that, and you
Yeah.
learn what you're not going to do again.
Correct. Yeah, and it's mostly that when you get screamed at by another grown man, and I've said this many times, it changes you.
Yeah. Yeah, I had somebody this year, we were on projects GC, and he said some colorful things, and I probably would have reacted a little differently back then because right, you're in it. People get heated when there's deadlines and there's
Yes.
customer expectations and things aren't going the way they should have, and it's tough. I think in our world, like in our little niche, it's such a niche that it's tough to explain to people all the intricacies that go into it, and they want it done and they want it yesterday. And anyway, that guy told me he was going to take me to 3 layers of hell. I think it was. I was on speaker. I was on speakerphone in a car with a friend of mine, and he was looking at me like, "What in the?" And I said, "Listen, we can yell. You can yell at me. I can yell at you. That's not going to change anything. But we got to figure out a way to work this problem and get to the end result." I mean, 10 years ago, I would have taken fire with fire.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. I think that's something I've learned is you got to kind of take a little even approach to things, or it's not good for the men. It's not good for the people that work with you. If they don't know what guy's showing up that day or how you're going to react, it's a challenge.
Hmm. So fast forward to today, what is a day in the life? What's a typical day look like for you?
I think the day that I get the most satisfaction out of is like if we're working a job and I can go out and see the job, see the customer, see how the guys are doing, see how the work's going, and connect with the customer, connect with the guys. That's what I enjoy.
Yeah.
I enjoy going to look at work. I still go and look at a lot of projects before we get started and try and form some client relationships. Probably in the office more than I'd like to be. I don't know. That's the role right now. My role is to kind of find some of the work, help our guys find work, help coach them, help coach the managers we have, and put them in a position to succeed. Whether that's hiring some more people, trying to find equipment to fix a problem, or um, you know, drawing on an old relationship to help solve a problem we have on a job. See, I don't know, a little bit of
Yeah. If you don't mind doing a little name drop and just so people get some context, we talked about some of the places you've done. Can you hit me with like your top 5 favorite projects from a fame perspective of like fields that are really famous?
um, I think something that we're very proud of as a company is our relationship at Penn State. We have a picture in the office of Bob Hummer and Joe Paterno from like back in 1980.
Wow.
White loafers, the whole deal. So that we're very proud of that, one because of the stature of Penn State, uh, but also the longevity of having that client. That field blew up in like the '90s in the middle of the season, and that was something I learned from Bob. Like the field blew up as a Rutgers game or something. People still talk about that 30 years
What
later.
do you mean by that when you say the field blew up?
It came apart. Like the
Jesus.
grass was flying, divots were flying, and I don't know the whole story from back then. Obviously I wasn't around, but he went up and fixed it, and they played. I think Michigan was the next game, something like that. So I've learned that not everything's going to go right all the time, right? But it's how you react. Do you
Mm-hmm.
stand behind your word? Do you stand behind the work? That's something we talk about a lot here. So Penn State, actually, because that's going to be on TV, Saturday? First college football playoff game, Beaver Stadium's hosting. We actually resodded that field right before the last home game with the anticipation that they were going to have this game. So a couple of my guys were talking to the stadium manager up there. They're plowing snow off that field and getting that thing ready. So that'd be cool to see that. We're very
Yeah.
proud of that work.
Yeah, so I mean, weather's one thing. What I find really fascinating is you're obviously working timelines, you're working very professional situations, you're dealing with the managers probably of not only teams but of also the stadiums and things like that. But you're dealing with something that's growing, so you don't have
Yeah,
complete control over that. You don't have control over weather, obviously, because when I think of our industry in metal, like once we buy the metal, we're pretty set. There's some metallurgical things that metallurgically I don't even know what that word is, but anything,
I get it.
things can happen to the product that are, we don't know what happened, but it doesn't happen that often. With your stuff, that's probably like, that's normal. Like that shit can happen all the time.
Yeah, we try and take, obviously, like any work, you try and take the variables out. You work with
Yeah.
known suppliers, known process, but yeah, it's a living thing, and it's going to react to the weather in different ways, and we have to react to the weather, the soil, the dirt, because there's kind of two projects. One, you're building out that's long term, and maybe you don't have a hard deadline where they need to field. But like Penn State, we're up there, and they have a game coming, right?
Hmm.
You do a concert repair, whatever stadium that may be. There's a game coming behind us, and they're not moving it. And the product's got to be right. Like it's all got to line up. We've seen grass not do what we hope or we want it to do. That happens all the time.
Yeah. I mean, that variable's got to be a bit stressful because that's a little bit of hope.
Yeah, well, you hope the trucks show up on time because, on a stadium job like that, you got 20 or so tractor trailers need to show up. Company trucks, independent trucks, they'll do goofy stuff. They'll pull over, they'll sleep, whatever. Summer, we'll haul out on reefer trucks. Yeah, just a lot of different logistics that go into it to make sure. And then it's an expiring product, right?
Yes.
Once it gets rolled up at the farm, we have 10, 12, 24 hours to get it unrolled at the job or it's going to start spoiling. And it's not like when you unroll it, you say, "Oh, that's bad." That shows its head a couple days later when something's
When it's
brown.
set.
I mean, you will sod. It's interesting. Bad sod is the worst smelling, hottest stuff that you. It's amazing how hot it'll get when it goes bad.
Interesting.
Yeah. We try to let it get to that point. So it's really got to be a fresh product. Timing's everything in our game. It can't sit somewhere for days. Harvest it and we lay it as quick as we can. That's going to give us the best result.
It's almost like concrete. Once that thing starts mixing, you got to get that thing there and
Yeah, it's a
get it
runaway
out of it.
train, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to go. And that's a challenge because if it rains, whatever, our guys know if we're getting 5 loads of sod, however many loads that day, we got to get it down. Leaving early and leaving a load for the next day in the middle of the summer that's not an option.
So how do you get your people in the mindset of it's not an option? Today's the day that there's no excuses. This is one of those sod days. Everybody's got to stay long. It's going to be a long day.
They know it. I mean, most of these guys been with us. They know what's coming. I mean, it's a buildup on the job, right? You're doing the grading, the prep, and okay, we're going to sod, and the hope is everything goes the way you want it to go. I mean, obviously not at the high level jobs, but you can have sod show up and it's weak, tender, falls apart, and your day goes from an easy day to you're putting together a jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah.
So it is a mindset. I was telling our guys today how many ever working days we have in a year, 250 days. There's probably 50 days, right, that everything goes right. Everything, the materials are good, the weather's good, the equipment didn't break down, everybody's in a good mood, and you really got to celebrate those days because the other 200, one of the 4 is going to be out of whack.
That's so true. Yeah, I always think of it as a triangle, right? You got the time, cost, and scope, and one of those triangle sides is going to be screwed up at least more times than not.
That's right. Yeah, it's something that's not going to be the way you thought it is going to be, and I think that's what differentiates a good project manager from a great one is how they react to that and how they shift and can change.
That's good. How stressful is it to work for large sports organizations? Or is it really no different?
I think there's a little bit of underlying stress, right? You want to do the best you can. Their expectations is perfect.
Yes.
We've gotten used to it. I mean, back in the day, it was a challenge, right? You go there and you're tensed up. But now, working for the Phillies for, 10, 12 years, we understand the expectations. They understand what we're going to give them. So while we're proving ourselves every time, right? You have to prove yourself. You have to do a good job. We're not proving ourselves like, can these guys do it? Because that's the first job. That's the first 3, 4, 5 jobs.
Can they live up to it? Can they live up to it? Can they live up to it?
Yeah. And then after that, you got to hold the line on the quality.
Yeah.
Keep it, right?
What goes under, because I think this is really fascinating. I don't think a lot of people understand this, is what goes under what we don't see. Like there's layers upon layers under that sod just for drainage purposes, I'm assuming, and to keep everything together. So what is how does that process, what does that look like?
On a professional level sports field, they want those fields as flat as they can, especially soccer, even baseball. Baseball has requirements now on how much slope you can have on a field. So soccer wants a very flat field, and most professional soccer fields are dead flat, 0%. So all the water has to go through the profile. So most of those will have established subgrade. We just built one for University of Pennsylvania this year. You establish subgrade. You'll dig drain lines every 10 feet. You line everything with geotextile, put the drain pipe in. Then you have a gravel layer. And then on top of that, there'll be a sand layer. So a sand root zone of coarse sand, uniform grade. And then they'll mix some peat moss in with it for some moisture, a little bit of nutrient retention, not much. And Then we put the sod on top of that. Irrigation is at the bottom of the gravel layer. You get into higher level sports, you have heating systems, or you have a sub air that they can hook onto that drainage system to pull water out of the root zone to accelerate drainage. On a sand-based field, the lifespan of a professional field, the surface, everything underneath will stay, is probably 5 to 10 years.
Okay.
Before a lot of organics build up on the surface and drainage will slow, or weeds will work its way in that you can't get rid of, and then they'll remove that grass and then put new sod down.
So which I know the answer to this, but what made the University of Pennsylvania field so special?
Well, that was they're a long-term customer. I think we've been working for them since the 90s. Again, I think that's something we really pride ourselves on is once we acquire customers, doing everything they need, solving their problems to hang on to them. It was a challenging site, Center City, Philly. A lot of pressure on that job from labor and so yeah, and we did a lot. It was a lot of firsts, right? I hadn't built a sand-based field. We put in a HDP irrigation system, so it's all welded pipe versus glue and primer. So a lot of firsts that we tried, but we have a lot of good guys. Steve, our irrigation guy, he took that challenge on. Our foreman really took that challenge on as far as getting all the materials in there and seeing, with really no staging area, how we could bring, I think it was about 6,000 ton of material onto that site and spread it, and the tolerances we were grading to. So the final surface tolerance was 1/8 of an inch.
And how large is this? It's what, 60 by 120, right?
95,000 square feet, so a little over 2 acres. So they had a FIFA tester come in afterwards, and they ran a straight edge across the whole field. And we didn't make it right out of the gate. I mean, that's kind of impossible because, I mean, 1/8 of an inch, you have a variation in just the sod coming from the farm, right?
Yeah.
We're out, the guys, our maintenance team. So we have a construction division, we have a maintenance division. The maintenance guys are kind of what our one client called the scientists, right? They get into the details. And they were out there, they made their own, and credit to them, right? They made their own level board. They were dragging that around, throwing sand down, hand raking in any little low areas. So that way, when the tester came, we had a shot at passing. So it's cool. That job was kind of cool because we had the construction guys did all the upfront work, heavy lift. Our irrigation guy was there. And then afterwards, that job, most of these jobs we owned for a while. So we owned to either a period of time or like a certain root depth before we can hand it over to the customer. So that's where our maintenance guys come in, and they really pushed that thing across the finish line. It was pretty cool.
So what you skimmed over there real quick was, so it was a FIFA-regulated field, which apparently University of Penn is going, that field specifically is going to be a practice zone for the FIFA World Cup coming up in 26, I think. Yeah.
I don't know if that's official yet, but yeah, that's a hope.
Yeah, sure.
There's a couple events coming up in Philly, which will be really cool. So next year is a Club World Cup. Mm-hmm. So that's a lot of the Premier League teams. Teams from all over. I don't quite understand everything that goes on in that. And then in 2026, Philly's a host site for the World Cup. So we have some work coming up this winter in preparation for that we're excited about. Yeah, I think things like that, you talk about this weekend, college football playoffs or the World Series or the World Cup, even some of the golf events like down Wilmington, they had the BMW Championship. Things like that you get to watch your work on TV.
Yeah.
Obviously, when everything goes right and the customer's happy, that's enjoyable to watch. And I think it's something to be proud of. And I think it's something the guys are proud of as well.
Yeah, no doubt. What's the hardest sport to take care of?
Well, I think baseball, softball.
Interesting.
Are the toughest ones as far as building and maintaining because of the infield skin component of those fields. The transitions that we need to make between the dirt and the grass need to be perfect. The tolerances on the infield mix. I mean, really, those guys are as much scientists, the groundskeepers, these are the guys that the stadium managers, the guys that are there every day, are as much scientists on the dirt as they are the grass. They have to be equally as good at both because the bounces and the hops they get on that infield mix, that's where a high percentage of the game takes place.
Yeah, no doubt. That's so, yeah. So my favorite soccer team in London is Arsenal, and they call that stadium the carpet, right? Which I love because I love grass and I love, and when you say like it has to be, 0, that's exactly what it's about. And then they cut the lines and they cross mix.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of the equipment that we have, so some of the drainage equipment and things like that, have actually come from Europe and come over here through some of the contractors, and now I think obviously with more European teams playing here in the States, some of their techniques and things like that have worked their way over here as well.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, that's really good. I love that. I wouldn't have thought baseball, but now when you said about transitions and the infield being completely different, that makes a lot of sense.
yeah.
The turf industry has seen a ton of innovations over the years. Some of those actually have some new equipment. Any recent developments or trends that excite you that have impacted your work?
We're always trying to bring on new equipment, that'll fit a need. So we brought over a drainage machine from Europe. It's called a top drain, cuts two drain lines in one pass. We found some applications on golf, so we did a bunch of work at Caves Valley Golf Club down in Baltimore area. They have the BMW Championship. I believe that's this year. So that's kind of cool. We try and find something. One of the old timers, Ben Burns, he was a sales guy forever here. He said, if you can solve somebody's problem, you'll have a customer, and that's really our focus. So if we see a piece of equipment that we think could help us do our job better, we'll bring it on. Something that's happening with the World Cup, we haven't gotten involved in it yet, is they require a fiber reinforced field.
What?
So rather than just grass, right? Like sod, you lay it, and then people play on it, and they want grass, and then you either need to stitch artificial fibers into it, or they grow sod on like an artificial backing. That's a
Wow.
requirement they have as part of that
Is
tournament.
that to hold things together?
Yeah, so in a sand-based root zone, obviously it's essentially you're laying sod on top of a beach, right? So if you break through the sod layer, especially football, soccer, where you have a lot of cuts and turns, once you break through the sod, the field could potentially start coming apart. You lose your stability. So those are stability fibers that the roots will hold on to, and if you do lose some coverage, should keep the surface playing well.
You almost have like a carpet underneath as a backbone.
Yeah. 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 Like the Green Bay Packers, they have that system. We've never installed one. Know the concept. I mean, the high level of sports at the NFL level, it's a challenge because like the Steelers had that system. You can't really resod because you have
Mm,
those fibers at the surface. Once you put sod over top, you lose the benefit of those fibers. So
interesting.
in fields with heavy wear in American football, I think in some cases been a challenge. Packers do well with it, I guess.
I'm assuming they went with that because of the cold, because of the extreme temperatures.
I guess, yeah. Green Bay's a little bit out of our area, but I understand the concept at least, right?
Okay.
Why they do it.
That's cool. Can you share a story about a particular memorable project or client that stands out from your career? You talked about Penn State a little bit. Anything else jump out in the Penn one?
There's been a lot of cool jobs. I'm trying to think. I mean, I can remember eating sod. I've eaten sod, eating pizza in the Phillies bullpen at like 2 a.m. We had some sod that came in. It wasn't cooperating with us, and that took forever. They were going to play like the next day, and yeah, that was an all nighter. My brother-in-law, his brother came to work with us that day. He has a full-time job. He wanted to go to the Phillies. We're like, we'll be back by 8 o'clock at night, no problem, because he had a shift at the supermarket at like 5 a.m. So we're coming back through, and I think they dropped him off at the supermarket on the way home.
Oh, that's awesome. So you're eating pizza and just waiting for the sod to get delivered so you can finish up the job. That's sick.
Wow, that was our break. We were like dying at that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of cool jobs. Honestly, the majority of our jobs are at the high school, small college level. The
Yeah.
bulk of our work, that's who we work for, and I think it's cool to see those. A high school that was playing on all dirt, or they were taking, the third baseman was at the dentist because the bad hop took his front teeth out, and seeing the look on their face when they see what the work that we've done for them,
Yeah.
I think those
Yeah.
are some cool moments.
Yeah, that's cool.
So yeah, it's an interesting profession.
Leadership. How do you foster a strong culture within your teams? What's your style?
I think I have a lot of trust in our people. I tell people a lot. There's a high trust environment because I can't be everywhere. Our install ops guy, he cannot be at every job. So it's on the foreman at that job. It's his responsibility. Even though my probably my inclination is to be a micromanager, right? And that's something that I was taught. I was taught by a micromanager. And a micromanager came from a place of caring, right? He
Yeah, sure.
wanted a high level of quality, but we're sending these guys out. It's up to them. They got to make the thing sink or swim. But I think we care about our people. We show that by doing the best we can to take care of. We expect a lot out of them, but we have a lot of guys that have been with us. I've been here 17 years, so I got a lot of a couple 17, 15, 12, 10,
Nice.
5-year guys that really build a foundation
Mm.
of the team. They know the expectations, and I think keeping them here and driving employee retention is important, and that's how we've really built quality on our job sites.
Yeah, I don't think people spend enough time on that retention word because you want to drive yourself crazy, especially in a quality environment or just going 3 steps backwards all the time. That retention piece, if that's not right, you're going to be, talent's going to be walking out the door and knowledge is walking out the door all the time.
Yeah, yeah. I think till I got in Vistage and I didn't really have a lot of intentionality behind anything that we did, but I think just focusing on listening to people, sitting down with them a little bit more, and
Mm.
understanding what they need, whether that's equipment, whatever,
Yep.
to execute the work, and trying to have an environment where they feel comfortable coming and talking to whether it's me or another manager about an issue, so we can try and solve it before it balloons on us and we do have somebody walking.
Mm. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it doesn't have to be some huge, like it's so interesting. I saw a post today that I thought was absolutely brilliant around culture, and it was just like it's not about Christmas parties and ugly sweaters and pizzas and all this shit. Like
Yeah,
it's what you just said. It's sitting down, listening, and saying, "Okay, how can I get these barriers out of your way?"
yeah, yeah. I mean, those are nice pictures, but I think it's the stuff that the day-to-day work. And do you walk the talk? Like the day that you come in here and you feel like crap, you got dumped on your emails, somebody dumped on you. Like, how are you going to react? Because 5 minutes from now, somebody walk in and say, well, hey, here's this problem I got. So you got to be able to shift gears quick.
Yeah.
That's a challenge mentally, right?
Yeah, and then take beatings from customers for something you had nothing to do with, right? That's all part of it too. And you do
Oh, yeah.
that for your people, man. You want to watch things come full circle and not go back to them and go WTF, but go, okay, how are we going to make this better?
Yeah.
What are we going to do?
Yeah. I think if you can be a blocker for your people on some of that stuff and take the fire, it,
3 layers of hell.
yeah, the 3 layers of hell, man, it's going to rain down. But the guys didn't have to deal with that guy, right? By the time he got to them, he was kind of calmed down, and we at least had a solution. But yeah, that's not the most pleasant part. But
No, I had one of those earlier this year and it was not fun. I was talked to for a straight hour on why we're pieces of shit. And I was just like, oh, sucks.
yeah, but that's the stuff that doesn't show up on the ugly Christmas sweater post, right? You know, but it
The
happens.
lashings.
Yeah, that's the nuts and bolts of contracting. And
That's correct.
I don't know how you change that narrative, but there's always pressure, and everybody reacts to pressure differently. And please, I've reacted wrong, so I'm not.
Same,
Yeah,
dude. Totally same. Yeah, it took me a long time to even, like you said, take it and then go, okay, cool. All right. So how do you want to actually start working on? Are you good now? Are you done yelling at me? Do you want to
yeah,
work on something?
yeah. 10, 15 years ago, man, I ran hot. I would have met fire with fire.
I can't imagine, Matt. So, next question, work-life balance, which is really funny because I think it's great that you just came back from a trip from Italy not too long ago,
Yeah.
and you said you're terrible with this. How are you working on managing that? And I know some people hate the word work-life balance. I don't know why. I think it makes total sense. What does that look like for you now versus maybe what it did in the past?
See, I was brought up in that you don't take vacation. I got married in October, and I remember I was telling Bob, when I was getting married, and he said, "Oh, well, that's good. That's out of the seating window." So, but that's what I was taught, right? You don't take
Yep.
time off. You can't have more than one guy off at a time. So you gotta manage the guys, your employees' vacation time. Don't let too many of them take off. So But that's how I was brought up. But that was a world he knew, right? In
Correct.
his defense, it was you work. He grew up on a farm, Lancaster County farm kid,
Yes.
and you work. And
It wasn't out of hurting people.
oh no, not at all, not even close. But I think in order you go back to the retention and things like that, like you gotta let people get a break. They got to get away. It's all part of, like, for me, letting go of the
Mm,
projects, letting go of different things, and saying, okay, I can go. They're going to be fine, right? They probably rather I leave, and I think then it's okay to leave because I'm okay if they take vacation, right? I'm happy for them to take vacation. If they want to work, they don't want to take their time. That's their journey. They have the time. It's available to them. But yeah, I need a break because honestly, the physical work for me wasn't as tiring as the stuff I do at this desk.
totally agree.
That's, I think, a challenge for me once I started in a leadership and in a management role, is just realizing the grind that is, and at the end of the day, you're wiped out.
It's heavy.
It is, and especially when you're dealing with a lot of personal stuff. Like, I mean, personal stuff like with employees and customers and the relations. That really,
There's no easy fix is the problem.
well, that's it. Yeah, yeah, and yeah, on a project you can fix that right away. Okay. Here, the fix is like a week from now or three more conversations, and that's tough. And trying to fix relationships, that really, I'm getting better at it, but that's why I need a break. And I'm fortunate. My wife, she makes me go places, and she likes to travel. Like I said, back in the day, I never went anywhere. I was working. This was it. Then I met her, and we've gone some pretty cool places. And I'm actually, so a couple days is Christmas break. We're shutting this whole thing down. Every Christmas to New Year, we close. We take a break. Everybody gets out of here. It's a good time for us because a lot of our customers are on break. Sports are winding down, so we all look forward to this time. And it's a good natural break for us as the weather starts to go south. It's wet, cold, muddy, frozen. So yeah, this is the time of year I enjoy. Right, I
Yeah.
can actually go away. I can get away from here, and my phone won't be blowing up in the background. Like, you don't have that ticking time bomb over at your
Yeah.
nightstand. So
It's actually a clean break for you.
yeah, yeah, it is. It's a good natural break.
You probably love Christmas though.
Yeah, yeah, all day,
All day,
all
baby.
day. In-laws in the morning, my family in the evening.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Stop
that's really
by.
come on in.
Yeah, yeah, come over for the Christmas ham.
What is something what's something very interesting? Like what's your go-to party fact about like what you do for a living that most people don't know?
I the most My wife tells me this. I didn't really realize it. The most common question I get, it's about our sod farm operation. They say, "Well, aren't you ever going to run out of dirt? What do you do? Where's all the dirt go? Do you spread new dirt every time?" Because they think we're
Mm,
gonna we're gonna deplete the topsoil and we have to haul in dirt. I mean, the scale of soil that we would need to respread on all our fields is big. But that's the most common party question I get. That's something I'm passionate about, right? Is our soil at the farm, and uh, how much we take care of it. Because I think sod farmers get a bad rap that we're like
mm.
miners. We take the
Just
soil and
scalp the earth.
yeah, yeah. No, those guys. So that's probably the most common party question, and then I think once people realize some of the work we do, they ask about the professional teams and things like that. And I don't know. I don't know if you'd be surprised by this, but I tend to try and stay to myself at parties.
So, for those of you who don't know, Matt is my spirit animal when it comes to social situations.
Yeah,
We're one in the same pod.
yeah,
We're both in the corner looking at our phones when
yeah.
everybody else is having a good time.
It's a challenge.
I love it. Man. Aspiring future leaders, what are you telling, or what would you tell the younger guys coming up, or if you could go back in time and talk to yourself again, what three things would you give yourself way back then?
I think I'm a perfectionist, which is a challenge. You have to
Mm,
allow yourself to make some mistakes. I mean, I think the way I handled management of the people here 5, 6 years ago, right, is different than today. I think the hardest thing, one thing I learned is, I did this. I let somebody go, and then I after I did that, I wish that I had had the tough conversation with them, 6 months, a year before that, till we got to that point, and I needed to let them go. And that was a regret that I had. And I struggled, and I still struggle. I think everybody does with the tough conversations. And I think it's just trying not to have that regret, because at some point you have to do what's best for the business and
Mm.
what's best for everybody. And if you can right somebody's ship before it gets to that point, I think that's something I learned. You got to be proactive.
Yeah, that's really good. AR always tells me clarity is caring, right? Even though it's really hard to tell somebody what they're not good at, that clarity is actually giving a shit about them because you're giving them an opportunity to change.
It is. Yeah. You got to reframe it in your mind. And like my mind is like, you're not coming down on this person, but I'd rather have that conversation than the ultimate conversation, which is that we
Yeah.
got to go our separate ways. And that's a conversation like, you can say you're fired. I mean, it never happens like that in small business. It's like there's like a terrible conversation, and
Yes.
then at the end of the day, that person goes home and doesn't have a job, and they have to
I
tell
know.
other people that, right?
I know.
And I think about that a lot when we get to that position, and it's awful. It's the worst.
It is the worst. Yeah, I agree. And that's why I think biannual, annual reviews are some of the most important things we do in a company. I don't think people take them as serious as they should. Like, it is your opportunity to be crystal clear,
Yep.
to set serious expectations on improvements for the upcoming 6 months or year or whatever that is.
And I think the other thing, you got to be able to learn from the mistakes we make, right? If we mess something up on a job, yeah, okay, that went bad, but we need to learn from it so we don't do it again. And I think it's how you frame that conversation. I had one, conversation with our foreman the other day. He's learning, and I said, "Listen, I'm not coming down on you. Like, I need you to learn, so the next time we don't do that."
Yeah, we call those lessons learned. So we'll have them at the end of projects if we have things, or if we're going to repeat the project. Like, maybe everything went well, but we have things, takeaways that we can make it faster, better, right, stronger, all those things. Or if you have a really shitty product, you can call them, postmortems, because it was awful. It's dead now, and we have to go figure out ways to make sure it never happens again.
That's right. Yeah.
So yeah, they're not fun. But if you bring a group of people in and you keep it, how do we make sure this doesn't happen again? Not what the F were you doing? I think it's pretty easy to get through some of that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an approach.
You're not going to change it now. It's over. Like, you move on.
That's it. Yeah.
The last thing I want to talk about is your certificate. So many people, I love talking about this subject, which you absolutely hate. What are you are one of 4 people in the United States, I think it's 4, that have these certs. What are these certs and what do they mean?
So there's no official count. Like I probably have that count. I know because a good friend of mine has them. Nolan Thomas down in North Carolina. He does same work that we do. There's a few other field builders. So there's two kind of trade associations. American Sports Builders Association, they have a certified field builder program, and then Sports Field Managers Association, they have a certified sports field manager program. So the one is for building fields, and the other one's for maintaining fields. There's not many of us that kind of cross over both sides, right? The maintenance and the building. And that was something Bob made me do that back in the day. What is my GPA? Like a 2.7. I'm like a 2.7 guy, sub 3. Okay.
Dude, do not pace this like this isn't something. It is huge. You're one of 4, maybe.
I studied really hard for those things. And that was probably the last time I really put a lot of book time down. And now I work very hard to keep those things. Like I go to the trade meetings and things like that, so I never have to take the test ever again. But it's
not to make acquaintances and make connections. It's to never take the test.
Yeah, it's not a necessity, right? Yeah, I never thought of it that way. Thank you for pointing that out.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's something that I'm proud of, and Bob could see it, right? Like if somebody says they want a certified field builder on a job, we don't want to not be able to do that job because of that. And outside of that, I think those kind of certifications, things like that, lend a level of professionalism to us, to our company, that we can tell the client. It's a client differentiator that we bring to a job. We just brought on our head of maintenance division. He's certified sports field manager. So we actually have 2 of us here. It's something you bring up a lot. I don't think about, but
well, no, I think it's important because in your arena that you guys play in, it's no different than like us getting our AISC certification, right? It's our customers know that we have to be at a certain quality level.
Mm-hmm.
So it gets rid of all the shit beforehand. Like if you can quote on this, I already know I'm getting a good product. I'm getting good contractors right out of the gate. It's a filter mode for our customers to say, okay, if you have this cert, I know that you do these things well.
Yep. Yeah. I think it's just maybe the reason I downplay it is because I think it's a stamp. It's a stamp that I have, but I feel like our company as a whole does that on every job. But the hope is that it gives us an ability to have a conversation with a customer that maybe we wouldn't have otherwise. But yeah, something I'm proud of.
No, I think it's amazing. It's just like when I took my PMP certification, like it was really hard. And I'm with you. I studied my butt off for that. But like the piece that I was mostly proud of was when I took the test, you had to log like, I don't know, like 4,000 project hours of that. I forget what the metric
Mm-hmm.
was, but it was a shitload of project hours. And it's because I was on multiple like 6 to 9 month projects. I was even able to take the test. Right. So like you had to get to that point first before they even looked at you to say, okay, here's the study material. And that was sick.
Yeah, and that's something like I recertify every couple of years. I think it's every 2 years for the Certified Field Builder certification, and so it's a mix of continuing ed, which is
Yep.
going to that show, and then it's the conference, and then it's also I have to have a certain amount of project experience. Like I can't not do that work. And so yeah, I think it's a good group. It's a good they do a really good job of making us stay on top of it. Because it's been interesting. We just had our meeting the other week, and the number of certified field builders hasn't grown tremendously. Like you have some
Mm.
people aging out, retiring, but I think there's around just for a certified field builder, and that's natural and synthetic fields. I think it's either 60 or 80 of us countrywide.
Wow. Well, one, that's amazing for the group that's in there, but it's also a little bit scary with the how you gonna fill in the people who retire and run out of
Yeah,
people.
yeah, they're trying. They're starting an academy to
Nice.
bring people on, to maybe work toward getting to that, being able to take that test. So yeah, I think that goes into bringing the next generation into the businesses, but that's a whole nother. You can spend an hour on that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're going through the same thing, right? Anything with the trades or anything in your world, just all of that has to be, I think, put through a new prism to make sure everybody understands how important it is, how cool it can be, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's a sales job, right?
Hmm.
You have to let them know what the opportunities are, right? And
Yeah.
that's a challenge in its own self. But I think just saying, well, we can't find good people isn't the that's a crutch.
100%. I hate that saying. I'm with you. Well, that was 58 minutes, Matt.
Hey, that wasn't too bad.
You slayed it, dude. That was amazing. Well, thank you. Once again, thank you for coming on. Do you want to promote anything?
I think we do a pretty good job on social media. So Hummer Turfgrass Systems, we're on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook.
Yep.
I'm on LinkedIn, Matt Weimer, Weimer. And then our Sod Farm Sporting Valley, we're on all those channels as well. So you can find us, see what we're up to. Manheim, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, nice drone stuff. You get real close on the machines and stuff. You get to see some stadium pics. It's pretty sick.
Yeah, that's my man Tyler. He's the one that set me up with all this, a camera and a microphone. I definitely did not do this.
Well, that all sounded very good. Once again, thank you for coming on, and thank you everybody for listening.